Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to review We Are the Wave. Going into this episode, we of course have the aftermath from the last episode to follow us into this episode. We start to have. I'm probably going to be tripping over some of these names because it's been a while since I've seen this show. Leah Hurst. I'm going to go with Hurst for this episode so I can go on and just every time we have the one girl who's to be like the tennis girl, I'm just gonna call her Hurst for the rest of this episode, so I don't butcher her name. Uh, until eventually I hear her name again, and then I'll go on and be like, oh, okay. Because really, I probably won't remember half of these names, just because it's been a while. It's been a number of months since reviewing this originally. Uh, this show just kind of ended up just kind of being like Nobody's Looking, where I went on and I reviewed the pilot at some point, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, hey, yeah, like this show. Oh, yeah. Like I completely forgot about it. And I decided, like, well, hey, let's like just keep going on and doing this format where it's just I'm going on and doing an episode and then calling it a day. Uh, if it seems that people are still interested in this show and this gets views, then I'll keep on doing the season at some point. Simply because I need things to do. That'll actually be interesting to people. So, with that said, We Are the Wave. What is this episode about? Because I don't have to explain. It's either on Netflix or I don't really have to explain what this show is about. I just have to explain what this episode is about. So, with this group, we start to actually see that these characters are going to go on and really continue to start something. Start a wave, possibly, via a graffitied sign that is upon their school. We have these characters that are just like, you know what, how about we go on and finally do something about how, like, unhealthy certain restaurants are? Or how about we go on and point out that people are kind of doing bad things for their environment, and let's kind of point it out to them and finally hope that these characters will kind of go viral while doing so. But you kind of have these characters that go on and are kind of just in desperation trying to go viral so that way they can go on and get views to support their future endeavors at some point. Um, but they are trying to do it for a right cause. They are pointing these things out to people. And so, yeah. So, with that said, so there's like a positive and negative thing about this where it's just like, okay, like, why do they have to go on and like post videos just so we can have these characters go on and try to be these like famous characters or whatever? Like if they really wanted to truly do it, like they would not try to seek out fame while doing this kind of thing. But I guess it's all technically in fun also until somebody gets the handcuffs slapped on them for whatever reason. But not everything is to all just be like, oh, like these people should not be getting away with some of this stuff. But anyways, so with that said, we of course have some things here that kind of like there's certain themes in this show that kind of weirdly feel reflective upon like if anybody was to go and see like Mighty Moshin Emo Rangers, where we have at one point where there's some episodes where we have like burger joints that are to be the villains for Emo Rangers, or just kind of these weird, creepy Ash like characters. So you can like if you enjoy this show, you probably might also like Emo Rangers. Weirdly, because of course we have one of the Power Rangers or their version of Power Rangers being a stoner at some point, and that's kind of hilarious. Until he becomes straight edge for whatever goofy reason, but it kind of feels like the Emo Rangers, oddly. So with that said, so yeah, like let's just go into this episode. Let's talk about it and let's get it out of the way because it's time to say that it's about that time yet again. Uh, we get to see more of course, Tristan being involved in prison in this episode. If of course you didn't know, because maybe at the tail end of it you saw, I think in the first episode you saw him like go to prison, and we now focus on that more in this episode to realize that this guy has gone on to done some shady esh like things. Where we of course have one of the officers in this prison who is telling Tristan, it's like I don't even know why we're kind of letting you like just go out like you're a guy who's just born to go to prison. Like like you were groomed for this. You were made for this. Just consistently go to jail. So with that said, let's just go into that double five time territory. Let's just go on and talk about this episode a little bit more. Let's go out of our way to say that it is spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time you to spoil this episode. So I'm gonna be a little bit all over the place with this review. Like I don't like to just go on and just perfectly through scene to scene perfectly talk about this episode just because it feels like scenes could be anywhere within the episode and there isn't a connection between them all, then why do I have to go on and try to produce that perfect connection of a show or a movie or whatever? So with that said, let's go on and talk about this episode. So, we of course find out that Tristan is to be in this prison, this like kind of juvenile prison. And in this episode, we of course have Tristan who showcases the rest of his friends, where of course he is to hang his hat at, which is to of course be a prison of sorts. And because I guess of overcrowding or some other kind of reason, we have Tristan who goes on to uh, get this kind of like half in, half out kind of treatment. Where, of course, in this episode, we get to know that I guess on weekdays and weekends, like weekdays, Tristan has to be back at this prison by 9:30, and on weekends he has to be back there by 10:30. And I guess every possible time he's going to have a breathalyzer or something like that. So and we kind of find that out throughout this episode. So we have this group who, of course, is to get together and is to go to school. And we have Zazie, who is treated like garbage in this episode, as she kind of accidentally bumps into one of her other students. We, of course, have this student that calls Zazie a schizo. And so Zazie goes on and rips this girl's nose piercing from off her nose. And so this girl all of a sudden is beating up and fighting Zazie. And now the teacher is coming in is like, hey, who threw the first punch? Yada, yada, yada. So we, of course, go on and have a number of people who are all saying, like, it's like, well, this girl threw the first punch. And there is a number of people that backed up that story. So all of a sudden, because the teacher didn't see what was going on, she decides, it's like, well, considering I can't trust who was to really just have this legitimate story, I'm going to go on and just make you, like, all of you characters just get detention. So all the characters are going into detention. They're doing janitorial duty, I guess, to go and clean these chairs. And so we find out at one point that Hearst, Leah, at one point was to call Zazie horrific names. Like call her freak or weirdo or whatever. And so Hearst was just like, really? Like, that was so long ago. And I can't even believe that you remember that. And they're like, well, yeah, like, you used to call her that. And she's like, well, like, and so Raheem is just telling the Hearst, it's like, well, hey, good thing that you don't have any, you don't have a nose piercing, She would have yanked it out. Frickin', so we have Hearst, who is trying to go on and do tennis practice, and she's being very distracted. I just think that, like, more and more, like, she's kind of burnt out with tennis, and, like, she wants to do something else with her time, with her life, with her. But I think we have it to where her parents are just kind of pushing her into doing tennis, as we can see the number of heavily generic pictures of tennis things all over their house, weirdly. Just, man, like, all those, like, tennis pictures that are just randomly placed throughout their house, especially within this episode that I saw. I'm like, okay, this is creepy and weird. You just have, like, hey, tennis slap, hey, tennis slap. So, but hey, like, these guys have to have some kind of pictures or photos in their house to justify that they live there. So this is what it ends up being. So Hearst goes on, and she is to start to decide that she just no longer wants to do tennis one day. As kind of, we find out here that Bjorn is to be Hearst's boyfriend. If we didn't know that already, they kiss, and so we have Bjorn that is to, of course, be Hearst's teacher, but really is consistently pushing her that all she needs to give about is tennis. And Hearst is just like, you know what, I'm just so sick of, like, having everybody push her in that one direction, and she's tired and sick of it. She wants to do something else with her life. Because tennis probably was not something that she really wanted to do. It's just that people kept pushing her to do it, to where she's just like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. To the point of Hearst going into this car with Bjorn and Sophie, and Bjorn deciding, after consistently having arguments with Bjorn, because Bjorn is just like, God, like, what, like, you're avoiding me. It's obvious you're avoiding me. And so we have Hearst, who's just like, you know what, like, could you stop the car? Like, I'm just gonna get out. I'm just gonna get out. I'm just gonna walk wherever I want to. I want nothing to do with you people anymore. I'm tired of you people. Goodbye. So Hearst gets out of the car, and Sophie, who is to be Hearst's friend, is, of course, like, Hearst, like, what are you doing? Like, can't we talk? And Bjorn is just like, get in the car. Get in here. You're gonna come back to me. And Hearst is just like, no, like, I don't give a So we have Hearst and a number of her friends, who are to be her new friends now, are all going to this place called the Abandoned. Some kind of, like, skate pool, underground mattress jumping off thing, kind of like a bat cave almost, but anyways, so we have Raheem taking his friends to the Abandon, I guess what is to be that location to, of course, be called. And so we have, of course, one of Lassie's, Lasse, Lacey. I'm gonna go with Lossie. I don't know. The guy with the very red hair that we kind of see trying to beat up Tristan in this episode, and he gets choked with his with Tristan's forearm. That guy. That guy. So all of a sudden we have one of Lossie's men who are to spot this group heading to the Abandon, and so he sends out a tweet. Hey guys, yeah, this group, the Wave group, they're coming to the Abandon. You guys better go on and try to get to them. So all of a sudden, this group makes it to the Abandon, where we meet a bunch of people that I'm sure are going to join the wave at some point. So we have these neo-Nazi characters, their word, not mine, going to say, "Hey man, you ruined my car, so we're gonna get even." Tristan, of course, tries to get out of this pool, try to fight off these men. All of a sudden, this leads to an all-out brawl where they're going and beating these guys down. Tristan goes and chokes out the redheaded guy and tells him like, "Hey, like, get your guys to leave, or you're going to black out soon." So the guy goes on, he's like, "Okay, like, we'll leave," as people are kind of technically getting the crap beat out of them anyways with this group, the Neo group. The Neo, not the one, the zeros. Anyways, so and we have like Zazzy who's taking this metal device and smacking this one guy. And so Hagen is grabbing Zazzy like, "Hey, don't fight that guy." And it kind of feels like weirdly both Hagen and Zazzy had this like one moment where like were they gonna kiss there? Is like they were like really too close to one another. I don't know what it is between them, but we'll eventually figure that out towards more of the second half of the show. Because there's 6 episodes. Eventually, we'll figure it out what happens between the both of them. So they're gonna end up together. We'll confirm that. So everybody starts fighting everybody. It's great. Uh, and so we get to where Tristan is to tell, of course, this guy's group to call off his comrades, get him out of there. And so they scramble out of there. And of course, we have the one uh, girl who has the blonde hair that is to be in the abandoned. I'm don't know who she is, but she's like, "Yeah, like we scared him off." Like, yeah, you did all the work, you did all the heavy lifting. So all of a sudden, we have Zazzy with this splinter, and Hagen is to try and pull it out because he has the tools, he has the talent. It's Miller time. So well, of course, they're passing around the beers. Tristan is to refuse them because he doesn't want another breathalyzer to go, "Woo!" No, drunk. You're never getting out of prison again, there, son. So, we really have it to where every time they do this shenanigans, they always feel so good about it. And so they end up seeing this sign, of course, that is to discuss them. As Tristan is to go on and show these guys that, of course, he is to be living at this prison. To where, of course, Raheem goes on and says, like, "Well, hey, out of all the houses that all you guys probably have, and of which I haven't seen yet, Tristan's house is the coolest because he's living in prison." And so Tristan's like, "Okay, cool, all right." So he goes on to prison. So they find out like he's halfway in, halfway out. That he has like a curfew and everything. So at one point, we of course have Hearst, who is kind of wheeling her electrical bike through town, and so Tristan bumps into her. He's like, "Hey, like, how's it going?" And like kind of a very generic whatever. And so since she needs help, like Tristan's like, "Hey, just give me this bike and I'll wheel it for you." So they wheel it all the way for her to get this thing charged. I'm like, man, it's kind of lucky they have like this one electrical outpost. Like, is that fairly common for where they're at? Like, they have this convenient electrical thing. I wouldn't think that something like that would be so convenient, but I don't know where they're from, and how the convenient thing. I don't know. It is what it is. So all of a sudden, they are looking at this Happy Burgers with a Z. Uh, fast food joint. And of course, we have both Hurst and we have both Tristan that are going on and seeing here. It's like, well, hey, like this food isn't like healthy for anybody, and I don't understand why anybody is still eating there. When you really think about it, is any food really all that healthy? You could go on and all of a sudden be eating a thing of salad, and all of a sudden you'll find out like on some news thing somewhere, hey, this one piece of salad is poisonous. So like, hopefully no one ate this salad because you're gonna die because there's being recalls being put together on this one thing of lettuce. And I'm just like, fuck. Like, so like, even if you're trying to eat nutritious or healthy or whatever, it may not be healthy enough because when you go on and hear the number of recalls that kept being made by a large number of food through a small stretch of time, that's when you get freaking conspiracy theories rolling around where it's just like, like they're trying to kill us with all this food. What the fuck? Like, so so Tristan's like, well, hey man, I'm gonna be the cool guy and I'm gonna go in there. So all of a sudden, Tristan is coming to this restaurant, grab this apron and this hat, and so Tristan is telling everybody, hey, I'm sorry, everybody, like absolutely everyone, stop eating your food, like stop chomping onto these burgers because we just found out that there's some kind of like tapeworm or some kind of something in your meal. Stop eating right now. And so we have one person who's like, blah. And so Tristan's like, please stop eating the meals. We'll go on and we'll give you this free voucher for like this burger. And I'm like, wait a minute, like, I'm sorry, if you already have it where like people are probably gonna get sick from the one meal, why would they want another one? So Tristan leaves and runs out and is to take this apron and this whatever. I'm like, how is it that this guy just goes into the back of this restaurant and just puts this outfit on and nobody's the wiser? But that's a show for you. So, and we have all the people at the fast food joint going like, huh? Like what? What's going on? Tristan runs off and slaps this thing on this sign, his apron and his hat and whatever. And so Hurst is just like, yeah, you should have gone on and have that be videotaped. Maybe I'll go and we'll do videos about it so we can go on and send that out. So that way a number of other people will try that stuff too to stop these fast food joints from going on and doing what they're doing. It's like, sure. Sure. Anyways, so we have these characters here, and they're doing a thing. You know what I'm saying? I've there's a difficulty transitioning here. So we have at one point where the rest of the group, as Tristan is to be in prison, where he's playing this weird soccer tennis game where he has to like you have to kind of hit the ball over the net, and it's like a tennis soccer ball game weirdly. And so Tristan is talking to one of his other prisoners, and I guess this guy is going to give him drugs so Tristan can possibly sell these drugs to people and then be able to start to make some money in prison. So Tristan is to go on and make it to school, and it seems like the rest of his group is to all go on and paint a sign upon the school saying that we're starting a wave. And Tristan is like, oh my god, like who did that? And the group of friends that he's with, he's like, well, maybe we did it, maybe we didn't do it. And so he's like, okay, all right. So we have a number of students that are all going to like this group, like, hey, did you do that? Was that you? And they're like, I don't know. Slap the cuffs. Slap the cuffs. That's why schools probably have a lot of cameras and all this garbage gook around their school because paranoia and all that garbage. It's like ridiculous. So we have Tristan who is to steal a cell phone from one of the students and is gonna like because he's a good pickpocketer, I guess. So Tristan goes on and he of course is to make his way to prison and is to slide the cell phone underneath this cell so he can go on and grab the cell phone and then be able to go into his room and use this cell phone to look something up. He ends up looking up this company called Hack and ABT, which I guess has something to do with firearms from what I've seen. And Tristan is also looking up a specific person. So, and we also have Tristan kind of scouting out this area, I guess, to at some point have it be what he wants his group to do next, as he's gone on and figured out how to get this group together. And Hearst is just telling Tristan, it's like, oh, you're just doing this to like try to win a girl over, or you're just trying to do this so that we can go on and like be cool. And Tristan is just like, well, is it working? We also had Zazie when she used to come to school after the whole like graffitied, painted school. We find out that Zazie is to cut her hair short, and so a lot of the characters are just kind of touching her hair, like, oh my god, like her hair is so short, and like they're really just impressed. We go on and we have, of course, these characters who are to go through this one grocery store. I'm not quite sure. This group is to all decide to go on and post this video mentioning that this specific store is to go on and produce way too much plastic, and they're going on and not doing the right thing with it. And so all these characters are all throughout their whole entire body displaying all this plastic like you will see on the thumbnail. Showcasing that, of course, that these characters are actually polluting the earth by continuing to have all these plastic products that these people are to make masks and whatever of. So all of a sudden they go on and post this video of them running through these aisles, jokingly, playingly, have this goofy thing, which I'm sure nobody really gave a about as long as they didn't destroy any of the aisles or anything like that. So, or steal anything. So we have this group of plastic people who send out this video out. All of a sudden they realize that there is a number of other people that mimic them or try to perform these dance maneuvers or do any of these kind of acts and whatever, and they're like, oh my god, this is so great. Yeah. Like, hey, these people are so cool. They're trying to be like us. Hey, isn't that great? So I'm trying to think if there is anything really left in this episode to kind of scrape through and talk about here. We have it at one point where when kids are like starting to go home, we of course have Hearst going to her parents, and her parents are just like, hey, like, are you okay? And Hearst is like, yeah, I'm fine. And we go on and have a number of people all go to their house, and Hagen is kind of interested in kind of texting or something to somebody, but he decides like, no, like, let's kind of just like feel good about these moments that we had created and just kind of leave it at that. So with that said, I think that technically covers most of what happens throughout this episode. Let me know in the comments below if there is something else that I probably had forgotten about, because I'm sure there probably was. I kind of did the big main events anyways. So yeah, we'll kind of see how eventually that all plays out within the show. Let me know how you feel about We Are the Wave, but I'm going to wave and say goodbye to everybody. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, everybody.